reflecting on conversation with Paul Hawken, and I feel like this first actual conversation was kind of a manifestation of like an interior monologue that I've had for a long time. I've been reading Paul's words, engaging with his work, and listening to him in conversation with others for a really long time. And so to then be in conversation myself, well, just felt like I got to talk to him about all the things that I've spoken to him about already in my own, inside my own head. So first of all, it is one of those moments for me when you're engaging with someone that you already have a sense of through what they've shared in the world, but also a realization that, you know their work, you don't know them. And yet, I think Paul is super authentic and pours a lot of himself into his work and his words. So there was a sense of shared knowing. And this is the latest work, I doubt the last, but it contains a lot of richness, a lot of guidance, and some specific prompts, right? So working in regeneration or regenerative practice for a few years now, and get a lot of questions, and had one last week from an executive MBA program that I was invited to be a regenerative resource to some of the practitioners of. And got the question, well, where are the practical examples of this? And I guided them to a few resources, such as Giles Hutchins' podcast, such as the organizations that Carol Sanford's worked with for decades. And there's a whole host in here as well. So I'm not going to, speak to any of those now, but just to say that if you're curious about this regenerative stuff or regenerativeness, and you want to sort of see yourself in it, all of those resources, including this one, they contain pathways, moments of access that exist in the world right now. Like, yes, this needs to be an ongoing, co-creative, co-evolving mutualism between us and all beings in this place forever. And there's real examples right now. Now, what I want to reflect on is the set of prompts that Paul invited me to read at the end of the podcast conversation. So I'm just going to read them out now, just in case you haven't listened to the podcast yet. So there's 12 of them, right? And these are in this book, the suggested places to start. Okay, so this is kind of like a contemplation process in each moment, in each decision. So, does the action you're about to take create more life or reduce it? Does it steal from the future or heal it? Does it enhance well-being or diminish it? And the prompt here is human well-being, but as I offered in the conversation, let's think about the more than human, please. Does it prevent disease or profit from it? Does it create livelihoods or eliminate them? Does it restore land or degrade it? I'm going to talk to that a little bit more in just a moment. Does it increase global warming or decrease it? And I think we now all know very clearly what the plethora of actions are that increase or decrease. Does it serve human needs or manufacture human wants? Does it reduce poverty or expand it? Does it promote fundamental human rights or deny them? Does it provide workers with dignity or demean them? In short, is the activity extractive or regenerative? Okay, so just two things that I want to focus on, because this is all about being with these practices and how they're working, how they're helping. So two things that I'm doing and one thing that's on my head. And yes, I have a shirt on, and I printed this a while ago, inspired by Anthony James, Regeneration podcast. Check it out if you haven't already. Thanks, AJ, for the inspiration. So, restoring land or regenerating land or degrading it. So, behind me here, this is a place that we're custodian of, my family and I, and this land was unloved, I think is probably the best way to put it, rather than degraded. This land's never been tilled, it's never been broken, it's never been ploughed, it's never been built on other than house, which is right over there. right? So this is unspoiled land under the soil. Yet on top of the soil, it's had all the stuff that humans tend to do to suburban spaces. It's had pesticide, it's had insecticide, it's had herbicide, it's had all that until we got here. Haven't used any of that stuff. And also started to bring back in some of the seeds and plants that are in this proximate whole, this neighborhood. So I'm going to make another short video and share that soon as a frame of reference. So look out for Regenerating Place as an example video, probably next week. But this was arid, right? Like there was very little moisture in the ground. We were at the back end of a drought, and whenever the rain came, the ground wasn't hydrophobic, but the water would just run off it. Right? It was baked hard. There was very little vegetation. And now, as you can see, there's heaps of vegetation. And that's mainly due to what I haven't done as much as what I have done, right? So much to my wife's distaste, because it's a constant negotiation. I haven't mowed the grass as often and not as low, right? I've let the grass come up a bit higher, which means it can get its root down lower. I've also brought in seeds from elsewhere in the neighborhood and seeded the yard out. So we've got a lot more abundance of naturally present, native or otherwise, grasses that are self-seeding, which means they're resilient and they're thriving in place. Okay, so I haven't tried to curate what's growing here too much. And I don't weed it too heavily, and I definitely don't spray it. So everything that's there has self-seeded, or I've distributed some seeds from a few hundred meters away. And that has been enough, that combination has been enough that with the record amount of rain that we've had over the last 2 years, we haven't lost any soil. In actual fact, the soil depth has increased. So it's just a small example in place here of this process of welcoming life that is, sorry, I'm distracted. It's a wedge-tail eagle right over there. Oh. Sorry, distracted. Oh, he got something. Oh, he might come over here. You know what? Like, oh, he's going to come right over the top. Oh, it's like right there. I'm not going to cut that out. There's a wedge-tail eagle, like 50 meters away. Life. So, yeah. Okay. So, second thing, been regenerating myself. Okay, been really in this space as much as possible because I find it deeply nurturing, and that connecting with place and the beings in place here in a very respectful way, even before I'd encountered them, kind of honoring a lot of the practices that Four Arrows spoke about in the episode preceding Paul's, just being respectful to everything that's here. Seem to be finding some co-evolving mutualism. As I'm growing, as I'm restoring, the place is restoring. And the place is restoring and the place is growing, and it invites me to do the same. So I think that's important. And this, right? So I lost my only other Patagonia cap. I misplaced it. It did come back, but I thought I'd lost it. And so because I had lost something, I went to replace it. And I know there's a lot of criticism of Patagonia and how regenerative they are, but I think as an example of our current consumerist culture, of which I'm absolutely a part, I got Fashion Victim Award when I was 18 at high school. Let's look at some of the things here. Right? Are they demeaning their workers? I don't think so. Are they acting as a corporation to reduce carbon footprint? I think they're on the journey, right? And they, to my eyes, been quite transparent about that. And are they working to create more life than they take? Well, the peak of this is made out of fishing nets, which are always taking more life than they keep. And when they become remnants floating around in the ocean, they're immensely destructive, as I have personally seen, unwrapping turtles from fishing line and fishing net. So I'm not promoting Patagonia. I have no interest. They don't need me to do that. They're quite successful by themselves. But I think it's an interesting example of, like, I lost something. I wasn't trying to add to my wardrobe. I replaced something and chose to do it with a brand that will replace this hat until I die, repair it. I think that's a choice that in this modern world we have the privilege to make if you're in the situation that I am. I think that kind of thing helps. So yeah, lots of good stuff in here. A few examples, a few practices. Ever onward with the journey. Wonderful to talk with Paul, and we'll be looking forward to what comes next from him. And if you haven't watched the What is Regeneration short clip, then I'll link it in the notes here with this video, and definitely check that out. I was standing like 6 feet away from Damon Gamo the first time that I saw that clip, which was at a Regen Sydney event, and it was great to watch him watching the affect that video had on its audience. So I definitely recommend you check that out too. Hope this has been useful, helpful. Back with you soon.